Hello, and welcome to another Tristan Has Thoughts Destiny 2 discussion. Just a few moments ago, Bungie dropped a massive blog post on the changes coming to Buildcrafting and Lightfall and how the system is seeing a huge overhaul. This article is extensive, and I want to make separate, more targeted videos on certain aspects of it, but wanted to release this one here to give a brief overview of what is changing, what is going away, and what to expect from Lightfall for your builds. The first part of this blog post is dedicated to in-game loadouts. For a long time, many people have been asking for an in-game loadout system so you can more seamlessly transition between your gear without using third-party websites or making 100 trips to the Tower of the Helm. The in-game loadout system looks fantastic. If you are interested in this, I highly recommend taking a look at the blog post, which I will link below, as they have some fantastic images showing the new loadout system. The UI looks clean and simple, easy to understand, and shows all your stats, perks, or weapons in a clean and concise way. The team has obviously worked very hard on this system, and it just looks fantastic. This is a solid first step towards a better Destiny buildcrafting experience. Now, let's talk more about combat armor mods. First off, elemental affinity for mods is being removed, so if you wanted to run a mod that required you to use a solo piece of armor, you can now use it on any piece of armor. This I feel is a long overdue change and will open up a lot more possibilities to players in their buildcrafting. They also spoke about how they are changing the combat armor mod slot, the final armor slot on armor, to be a general purpose armor slot. This change is in tandem with the change to the combat style mods I will speak about in a few moments. They are doing a large rebalance to the cost of armor mods thankfully, looking at use scavenger mods, and are changing weapon specific mods, an example they use is hand cannon loader, to not focus on weapon types but on their damage type instead. So instead of needing to slot hand cannon reloader for your solar hand cannon, you will now just slot a solar weapon reloader of some sort. Another huge change is coming to the artifact. Artifact mods will now passively apply to you and no longer need to be slotted. So for example, if Anti-Barrier Pulse is an artifact mod, it will now passively apply to all your pulse rifles and no longer needs to be slotted. They do address the fact that you can only have 12 artifact mods slotted passively at once, but you can change freely as resetting your artifact will be free going forward. Next, they comment on Artifice Armor. With it no longer being able to slot an extra artifact mod, it will now apply a small stat bump of your choosing, be mobility, discipline, etc., to help round out your stats. Another massive change is the fact that match game is going away in endgame content. I know for a fact a lot of players are going to be very happy about this. The shields are going to work similar to Gambit, where they are generally tankier but can still be broken with differing elements. They do talk about how new ways to break shields are coming in Lightfall, so we will have to wait for that information. Next, we get huge information on champions. Champions will now have different ways to stun them outside of using certain weapon types. Barrier champions can now be pierced with players' attacks when radiant, when using volatile rounds, or by using strand. Overload champions can now be jolted to stun them, suppressed, or slowed with stasis. Unstoppable champions can now be blinded, frozen, and then shattered, or hit with a solar ignition to stun them as well. This next part is huge, so I will do my best to condense all the information. Elemental Wells and Charge with Light are moving to an armor charge mechanic. Simply socketing one of these mods will allow you to interact with the armor charge mechanic. Taking charge is baseline with this system, so picking up one orb of light converts to one armor charge. Mods that created wells or gave you stacks of charge with light will now create armor charges for you. You can have between 0 to 3 armor charge stacks by default, but this can be changed with mods that increase this, charged up for example. Some mods will passively apply buffs and consume armor charges periodically, whereas some will require multiple armor charges to activate. As an example, Font of Wisdom will now passively apply its intellect bonus and passively consume armor charges, which can be slowed with extended charge. The main takeaway from this is Elemental Wells and Charge with Light will now only benefit from this armor charge system, and all mods have been reworked to fit into this system. With the removal of Elemental Wells spawning Elemental Wells, Bungie has moved this aspect to subclasses. For example, solar subclasses will now be able to spawn Fire Sprites. The ability to spawn and use these will come exclusively from your subclass tree, as no armor mods will pertain to these. All subclasses will have some variation of fire sprites and will have effects when picked up. An example of this is the Solar Fragment Ember of Mercy will now trigger the restoration effect when picking up a fire sprite. This moves us onto the final paragraphs of this article. Here they explain the goal was to consolidate and simplify the buildcrafting experience while opening some doors that had been previously closed. While they say not all builds will carry over into Lightfall 1-1, they hope the new possibilities are enough to soothe this pain point. We also get confirmation that Warmind cells will not be moving forward with the system. I do find this a bit sad, as Warmind cells were always my favorite mods, so pour one out for Warmind cells. This is but only a brief rundown of the buildcrafting changes coming in Lightfall. I plan to do multiple more in-depth discussions on specific parts of this over the next few days, so please look forward to those. For my initial thoughts, these changes seem pretty good. I do think there are a few pain points overall, but I will talk about these in the coming days, and I do believe these to be some solid changes. Be sure to let me know your thoughts below though. What do you think of these changes? Are you concerned? Excited? As always, please remain respectful in the comment section and I will respond to any that I see. A reminder to subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content, and remember, for each like this video gets, a capybara gets a big scritch.